Well, you made it to the final part of What If Deku was Isekai'd into Naruto. Congrats. Now, if you've made it this far, please make sure to go down below and smash the like button. You've already put a good, let's say 2-3 hours, I believe the series is in terms of length of time into this series. So you might as well go down below and smash that like button for today's video. That being said, pretty soon I'm going to be dropping a full series version of this movie, and it's going to be absolutely insane. The thumbnail is going to be a little bit different, but nonetheless, the series will still remain in its full glory. That being said though, guys, like I always say in the beginning of these videos, if you guys enjoy the video, make sure to share the video with a friend. And with that being said, let's get started.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Deku, upon being told about the legendary weapon that belonged to the previous leader of the Uzumaki clan, would decide that he's going to be going off on a journey, no matter how long it takes, to find this trident and gain this necessary strength that he needs to keep up and protect both of his brothers. Because the way that Deku sees it, he needs to be strong enough to protect his village, and he needs to be strong enough to protect his friends. Not only that, but he needs to be powerful enough to defeat Madara, because that impending threat will come very, very soon. That being said, the journey would go as follows. He would spend about a couple of hours traveling to the land of the whirlpool, and when he would finally arrive, he would begin asking around about this legendary trident, with many of its residents saying that it's nothing but a mere myth. Deku would end up pretty much being very, very persistent, asking multiple people, and with multiple people also declining, and some actually accepting, for Deku to complete tasks for them in search of the information that he's looking for. So, Deku would do something for them, and in turn, they would grant him a little bit of information on something that they know. Others would be kind enough to simply just pass on the information to Deku, and he would eventually end up looking for about an entire week, learning a couple of things that he would have ended up learning not in the village of chakra and molding stuff. And he also would have continued working on the Hanshakogeki, the attack that he created himself. Not only that, but he would have also, on the final day of the week, would have ended up getting a vital piece of information by completing a very tedious task that required him to defeat two pesky ninjas that have been going around, kind of causing a little bit of chaos in the land of the whirlpool. And so after doing that, he would be given information about a man that lives very, very far off. Deku, upon hearing this, would end up traveling to a little bit of a distant land, which would have taken him about 4 hours on foot. Afterwards, he would end up seeing a small girl actually being chased by a couple of bandits, with Deku immediately rushing into action with his heroic nature shining through and saving the life of this daughter. Out of nowhere, a man, a very old man at that, would come outside of a hut before saying thank you so much, and with Deku asking if he is the person that he's looking for. The man would then proceed to say that he is, informing Deku of his name, Saejima, before Deku would then say, "Do you have anything in regards to the legendary trident?" And the man would stay silent before then saying, "You saved my daughter's life. For that, I thank you." Before then proceeding to say, "Come inside." He would then proceed to treat Deku to tea, and his daughter would sit as they all listened to the story of the legendary trident of the land of the whirlpool. And so this is when Deku would finally get the information he's been looking for. It's hidden inside of a cave with a bunch of traps, and only those with a pure heart can actually end up wielding this trident. It only listens to those who are worthy. And so, with this piece of information, Deku would go off in search of the legendary trident, as during this time, he would have ended up gaining complete mastery over the Hanshakogeki, the insanely powerful jutsu that he would have been pretty much working on that entire time that he was there. Keep in mind, he worked for hours and hours and hours on end for about a week, and using shadow clones, he was most definitely able to master the Hanshakogeki. That being said, this is when Deku would finally end up arriving amongst the place that he was searching for, before then completing trial after trial after trial, and finally finding the trident. When Deku found it, it was actually underwater. It was in this strange looking cave with water that was completely still, and it seemed as though there was diamonds at the bottom, jewels, riches. But the one thing that Deku had his eyes on was the legendary trident. Deku held his breath for as long as possible, and with a simple tug of his arms, the trident slipped out as Deku wielded it above his head, and as if by plain chance, the trident created a bubble of air around himself, as Deku was able to immediately get out on some crazy Aquaman type levels of water bending abilities, you know what I mean? And so Deku, upon realizing just how powerful this trident is, he would end up gaining a huge power boost as a result of what would have ended up happening. That being said, the trident essentially has the abilities that go as follows: the ability to return to Deku and grant the user full manipulation over the water element. Not only that, but not to the extent of Poseidon, just in case you guys are thinking that he's able to control oceans or something, but he is able to mold water chakra perfectly now. There's nothing that's going to ever get in his way. And Deku now has full access to a ton more chakra, because it actually ended up unlocking another path of chakra that not many people are actually able to unlock. But now that ends up pretty much widening his horizon in terms of how powerful Deku can become by the end of the series. That being said, he also finds out that the trident does actually unknowingly grant him the ability to kind of fly with it. By throwing the trident in the air and holding onto it at the same time, he's able to pretty much fly along with the trident by holding onto it as it's pretty much flying through the air. So, as this is all happening and the week was pretty much passing by, simultaneously, the pain arc would essentially have been going down back in the land of Konoha. And so, the only real change that would have happened in the land of, the Hidden Leaf Village would pretty much be that this time around, the reason that Deku would end up finding out about taking Kurama's chakra is because Minato would actually end up informing Naruto of this said fact, leading to Naruto then on a later basis wanting to take Kurama's chakra for himself. Just like in the original version of the story, Tsunade would have ended up in critical condition. However, when Deku would have arrived back to the village after it had been destroyed, Nagato had been defeated by Naruto's insanely OP Talk no Jutsu, he would arrive to end up healing a bunch of civilians who were injured in the process. Not only that, but he would have used a lot of chakra to actually heal Tsunade a lot sooner than she would have been healed in canon, unknowingly pretty much speeding up the recovery process for Tsunade a whole lot. This one minuscule change to the story can ultimately be the ultimate domino effect that proceeds to create the changes that are all about to happen in the story of Naruto. Keep in mind, this is a massive change. In the original story, we have Danzo actually being the one to arrive. And, since he was there was really no much animosity in the story, because, he was kind of more calm. Not only that, but the Sasuke battle happened later, but since it happened earlier, that changes a lot of things. And so, with that being said, Sasuke would have actually, as I said before, would have left on a journey to essentially try to find things out, finally ending up returning to the village with more information regarding Itachi, Danzo, and also a lot of information that could pretty much put the village down. As soon as he would arrive, he would go to Tsunade and begin telling her about these things, thinking that he might have had to actually use force to get the justice done for Itachi. However, upon hearing these horrific acts that, befall the village when Hiruzen was the Kage, she would immediately be disgusted by what she hears, as she would immediately take action, shutting down the entire Anbu operation that was led by Danzo, as well as imprisoning a bunch of its members that had to do with the corrupt mission, and also literally kicking out a lot of the people who were in the council who were aware of these such events. With Sasuke being able to finally receive even a bit of justice for his brother, he was slowly able to get over I really was about to say Sasuke's death, but no, Itachi's. And so, this is when Sasuke would finally end up asking Deku to pretty much do the implant with the eyes of Itachi, telling Deku he's sorry for his reaction, with Deku saying that he understands and that, it's not really that big of a deal, saying that he pretty much already forgave him without Sasuke even asking. Sasuke smiles, saying that he wouldn't have it any other way than to have Deku be the one to do the operation. And with Deku smiling and saying, sure thing, we can start now. And so, Sasuke would end up getting EMS, just like in canon. This time around, they would all, after this surgery would be performed, they would all end up taking part in helping with the recovery of the village. Meaning Naruto, Sasuke, and all those other who were present at the moment. And so, as all of this was happening, Naruto would have also ended up telling Deku and Sasuke about the process of taking Kurama's chakra by force. So they would have actually ended up doing this, leading to Naruto unlocking his abilities of KCM, taking Kurama's chakra and meeting Kushina Uzumaki. That being said, this is when we would then have the Killer Bee situation go down. However, one major change to the story would be that this time, Sasuke and Taka are not the ones who are going over to try to kidnap Killer Bee. Instead, this time, Obito is the man to go there. So this time, Killer Bee isn't gonna run away or escape from this. He was barely able to fight against Itachi and Nagato, that of which Obito was able to pretty much control by himself. So I have zero doubts that, Obito would be able to definitely handle Obito. That being said, simultaneously, Obito would have been forming a bunch of alliances with other, people who have it out for the Hidden Leaf Village, as well as gaining access to Orochimaru and having him join his cause, telling him that he can have Sasuke when all is said and done. Orochimaru, liking this offer, would decide to join with the pretty much plan of the Tsukuyomi Jutsu and all that stuff. And so they would also end up pretty much gaining a couple of members from Taka. At this point, this is when the Kage Summit would be called, due to the fact that Killer Bee was taken and the Hidden Leaf Village was attacked, as well as all the other pretty much nations being pretty much taken in terms of their Jinchurikis. So everyone at this point is just all in a frenzy, and everyone is just like, yo, like, what's going on? The Akatsuki have to have a stop put to them. And in terms of the Kage Summit, Tsunade, as I said previously, would be the one to attend this time, with her actually choosing Deku as her escort, kind of the person who pretty much just watches over her. And Naruto and Sasuke would both decide to just stay behind and train with each other, as Sasuke is pretty much just trying to train with his EMS, and Naruto is trying to get a hold over his Kurama chakra mode. That being said, as soon as the 5 Kage Summit would commence, Raikage Killer B would begin with, no, not B, but Killer A. I'm not sure what his name is, okay? But the Raikage would pretty much be very, very hostile, saying that the Akatsuki members need to be stopped. What are they all doing about this? Being extremely hostile because he's angered at the fact that Killer B is not even in the village. He was taken by the Akatsuki. So he would begin to bring up the fact that many of those, rogue ninjas belong to all of their villages, and that all of them are to blame, saying that none of his ninjas are even part of it. I don't believe any of the ninjas from the Hidden Cloud Village are even part of the Akatsuki. But if they are, please correct me down below in the comments. This is when suddenly Tsunade, getting very angered at that, would end up pretty much smashing her fist on the table, as Raikage A would pretty much end up telling her that she better calm down, with him saying that they don't want a little accident between the Hidden Leaf Village and the land hidden in the clouds. Deku, hearing this threat come from Raikage, would immediately blitz behind him before saying, "Listen, I know you think you're the fastest person in the room right now, but if you ever dare to speak wrongly about my Kage, Lady Tsunade, I will kill you in an instant." And Raikage would have a drop of sweat go down his face, as he would then go on to activate his lightning mode, and right before he was about to actually attack Deku, this is when suddenly Obito would come in, fading through. As Deku and Raikage A would both turn their attentions towards Obito, Deku would say if he would have tried to attack him, he would have died instantly. And it's at this point that Deku would simply think in his mind, this man got me effed up, you know. He'd be like, this man got me effed up, you know, this big dude over here thinking he's stronger than me, you know what I mean? And so, you know, the Raikage would simply just be watching as Obito begins to tell everybody about the great shinobi world, saying that he is here and now. And it's at this point that tensions would begin to rise heavily as everybody in the room gets serious, and Deku would be declared that that's the ghost of the Uchiha, Madara, as everybody would pretty much freak out. And this is when the fourth Great Shinobi Alliance would be forced, with the Hidden Cloud Village actually not joining because of the tension between the land hidden in the leaves and clouds. And so he would ultimately end up deciding that he refuses to have anybody die for the sake of Naruto, that his village alone will be handling this, and that he doesn't need the help of everybody. Being in a very conflicted and angered state would make this hasty call, which would ultimately lead to not a lot of good things happening for the Hidden Cloud Village. That being said, we would still have the alliance go down just like it did in the usual version, and Deku and Tsunade afterwards would end up discussing things inside of a little bit of a tent, with Deku pretty much end up saying, like she doesn't have to worry about Deku standing up for her, it's his job, and Tsunade pretty much thanking Deku, saying, you're right. Before this, they would end up pretty much having a pretty normal day, and after this, they would all end up pretty much establishing things in terms of the Great Shinobi Alliance. It would be about nighttime, and the very next day would be the day where everything truly begins going crazy. And at this point, Deku and Tsunade would be planning their approach to this battle, saying that there's only two ways this could go. One, they lose a lot of men and casualties will be had, or B, the Akatsuki wins and the world is doomed. So Tsunade would end up saying that they should unwind at least one last time before everything goes to the crapper. And Deku would end up deciding that, you know what, that's actually not a bad idea. And so they would both end up having a toast, to which Deku, after drinking the sake, would actually end up pretty much spitting it out, saying it tastes horrible. However, Tsunade would pat him on the back, saying, come on, like, get into it. And Deku and Tsunade would both begin drinking a whole lot, celebrating and doing what adults do. This then leads to them playing a bunch of card games, and one thing would lead to another, with the rest being history. I'm gonna give you guys a hint of what happened. Yeah, a whole lot of studying went down that night. Deku got with his mentor. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Nah, but seriously, this is when suddenly the battles, which would have ended up going down in canon, would end up happening just like in the original, with the people who got revived with the Edo Tensei jutsu would be arrived just like in canon. However, this time by Orochimaru. And this time Kabuto would not have any of his same powers, so he's still pretty much the same weakling as he was always. That being said, Naruto would be doing his thing with Sasuke, with both of them deciding that they both are going to be having two different roles. Naruto's going to be on the front lines, and Sasuke, hearing of Orochimaru's inclusion in the war, would decide that that's going to be his fish to fry, saying that Orochimaru tormented him when he was a kid, and he has a little bit of unfinished business with Orochimaru, before deciding that he's going to be the one to go over and take him out. Would he find out Orochimaru was the person to do it originally? And instantly, no. What would have really gone down is Naruto and Sasuke both went to the front lines and encountered one of the members of Taka, this being Suigetsu. However, after being outclassed, I 1000% believe Suigetsu would give out Orochimaru being the one who casted the jutsu after being horribly outclassed by Sasuke. And so that led to Suigetsu being scared shitless and pretty much switching sides mid-battle. After this, we would have Deku then going on to the battlefield after waking up the very next morning, and then going on to have a couple of battles, with one of them actually being a battle against Kimimaro. During this battle, Deku would end up realizing just how far he's come in the couple of years that he's been in. Not only that, but Deku would have one thing on his mind weighing heavily. The night that he just had with Tsunade. It's something that Deku's not able to get out of his mind, and something that he kind of regrets but doesn't at the same time. The part of him that doesn't regret it is the boy part, and the part of him that regrets it is like his mind, like telling him, oh, he should not have done that, but his body is just like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like, Bush crack, sorry about that. But his body would be like, oh yeah. And you know, Deku would pretty much just be really, really, really happy about everything that's been going down. That being said, this is when the battle against Kimimaro would come in, and he would finally snap back into it, reminiscing on the past and realizing just how far he's come, sealing Kimimaro away. As this is happening, Naruto would be handling his business until eventually he would finally end up arriving, face to face with the man himself, Obito Uchiha, in the dawn of night when the battle is just starting to get extremely interesting. This would lead to Obito pretty much starting to fight against Naruto, with him barely holding up until Deku would finally arrive on the front lines. And many of you guys at this point are probably like, okay, so Sasuke found out about Orochimaru. How do they stop the Edo Tensei? Well, the way that the Edo Tensei is stopped this time is Sasuke is actually since he read the little tablet and all that stuff, he ended up finding out about the same jutsu that Itachi was able to use in order to take out Orochimaru, just like he would have done in the original. However, this version of Sasuke would have pretty much ended up coming up with a smarter tactic, using a jutsu that was very familiar to all of us, that of the Infinite Tsukiyomi. I'm going to be saying that this time, or no, not Infinite Tsukiyomi, but Tsukiyomi. I'm going to be saying that he stole a page out of his brother's book when he had the Mangekyo Sharingan transferred, and not only did he gain the abilities of Amaterasu, but he also gained the abilities of Tsukiyomi, causing Orochimaru to pretty much end up dispelling the reanimation jutsu with Obito pretty much still fighting against Naruto. This is when the animation jutsu would pretty much be dispelled, and Madara would be forced to weave a couple of hand signs to keep himself alive. This time around, we do not, keep in mind, we do not have a battle between the 5 Kage and Madara Uchiha, because there never was a need. Naruto not having that encounter with Raikage would lead to this all happening. And that being said, this is when Deku would arrive on the battlefield. When Deku arrives, Obito would begin using his abilities that are that of the Rinnegan, and would begin going off on them. He's going insane, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Obito begins going crazy when it comes to using his abilities in terms of the Rinnegan and stuff along those natures. Obito is finally revealing his true nature, using every single jutsu at his disposal to throw Deku and Naruto off, countering against Deku's insanely powerful Trident ability with his strange wind staff thing that he was using in the battle. And Naruto, as soon as he started activating his Rinnegan abilities, would be able to slightly react to them, but Deku is having much more of a harder time, because Deku has never had to fight against somebody with these abilities of that of the Rinnegan. And so Naruto's able to actually finally come in clutch and give Deku this precious information. Since Deku's pretty much the strongest one on the battlefield as things stand, and he has Sage Mode activated, and he's fighting against Obito, they're both trying their best to hold off. You know what I mean? Until finally, one man would arrive on the battlefield. The true Madara Uchiha. And when he does arrive, this is when the battle and tide of everything would begin switching for the worst. They would begin losing heavily, with everything shifting to the wrong direction, and Deku realizing Obito was not who he claimed to be. That was not Madara. This man before him is, however. Obito would laugh, and simultaneously, Kakashi would end up putting 2 and 2 together, realizing that eye that Obito has in his mask could only belong to one person, Obito. And so, they would end up having their own battle that happens in canon. When they're done, Obito would still end up becoming Jubito because he had that seal on his heart taken away by Kakashi's Chidori. And after this, we would end up having Deku and Naruto fighting against Madara Uchiha. The battle would go something like this. Madara would create 5 clones which would all begin using Susanoo, and Naruto and Deku would begin getting completely outclassed. They were not used to anything along these levels. That is, until Kurama decided to allow Naruto to use KCM2, and that started slowly shifting the tide of the battle. However, Deku was starting to lose a whole lot heavily, and it was not getting easier as moments went by. However, this would ultimately end up leading to Deku and Naruto beginning to get more and more outclassed until eventually Naruto would get more used to these abilities and begin finally being able to fight against Madara on a more even level, give or take. That being said, Deku witnessing this ability of the Susanoo right before him would end up having an insane idea. Using his ability of water manipulation, slamming the trident down at the ground, he would create a gigantic figure that rivals the size of the perfect Susanoo with a water creation that wields the weapon of a literal trident in its arms, a giant water version of the trident. And so Deku and Naruto would both be using their avatars to pretty much fight against Madara's Susanoo's, ultimately defeating them, and this would start changing the battle, the tide of the battle, completely dismantling Madara and beginning to actually start beating him, with Madara still not actually leaving his full strength on the table. However, when Madara gets taken out, in terms of like he got knocked out and Deku and Naruto both think that they won, this is when Sasuke would end up arriving in the battlefield. And when Sasuke arrives, Madara would actually end up blitzing towards Naruto's direction. Actually, no, not Naruto. He would blitz towards Sasuke's direction, piercing him straight in the heart, with Naruto screaming out in anger and rage to the heavens, and Deku falling onto his knees and holding onto Sasuke, trying to heal him for his dear life, saying, "Sasuke! Sasuke! Wake up! Sasuke!" But it's no use. Sasuke, he's dead. However, at this moment, he's talking to the Sage of the Six Paths, currently getting the moon side of his chakra and actually becoming a whole lot more powerful. Simultaneously, Naruto would end up having the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki ripped out of him, with the Geto statue transforming into that of the gigantic tree, and then Madara would end up becoming the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. And you guys might be like, "Hey yo, what about Obito becoming the Jinchuriki and having his Talk no Jutsu with Naruto?" That still does happen. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot to add that part before, this part in the script, but just keep in mind, that stuff does still end up happening. Naruto still ends up having that moment with Yubito, making him see the error of his ways. Obito tries to change his mind, but it's too late. Madara still ends up taking the Ten-Tails, and yeah, it ends up going a little bit different than what normal people would expect. However, after this would lead to Deku falling into despair, trying his absolute hardest to heal Naruto and Sasuke, and he can't. At this moment, Might Guy is actually one of the people who's fighting against Madara. However, this time around, the 8th gate mode is not enough because he doesn't have the assistance of Tobirama and Minato in his side to help him dodge the truth-seeking orbs that would have killed him on multiple occasions in the original version of the battle. We never have the moment where he uses the Night Guy kick, and instead, Might Guy is dead. This would lead to a huge change in the story, because this time around, Madara is now standing atop, becoming way more powerful than anybody could have ever imagined. Oh, and by the way, keep in mind that I had said that he absorbed the World Tree, but he didn't absorb the World Tree. He just absorbed the Ten-Tails. I completely mixed both of them up, and I do apologize for that. But just in case you guys thought I actually meant the World Tree, he didn't absorb that quite yet. However, he did absorb the Ten-Tails, and that leads to Madara becoming extremely powerful. However, Naruto and Sasuke would both wake up, and Naruto would still end up landing his trademark Rasen Shuriken, almost killing Madara in the process, with Madara then activating the abilities of the God Tree after absorbing its entirety into his being, unlocking the Reine Sharingan on his forehead. And after this would happen, Madara would be atop of everybody in terms of power. Everything we've ever learned about the series would completely be turned on its head. Madara would now have both the experience, the power, the chakra, the tenacity, the drive to defeat all three of these insane warriors. Naruto, Sasuke, and Deku would stand before him. Oh, and by the way, one thing I completely forgot to mention was Deku was pretty much healing both of his brothers, Naruto and Sasuke, at the same time, wasting a lot of chakra, and I mean a lot of it, trying to pray that he's able to keep them alive. However, he realizes they're dead, and he falls into a great state of despair, until eventually both Sasuke and Naruto hold on to his arm and say that that's enough, before Sasuke would then give him a smile and Naruto would tap Deku on the head, saying that he wasn't going to be leaving his dumb little brother behind to deal with Madara all alone, and that he didn't think he would he? Before Deku then wipes tears off of his face and says no, and Deku would be granted access to the one-tailed state of the KCM of the chakra mode that he gave to the entire Shinobi Alliance. Following this, Deku would end up picking his trident up as he gets back up and activates the 100 healing jutsu, Sage mode, and he pretty much starts using a whole bunch of chakra to power himself up, standing side by side with Sasuke and Naruto, as Naruto would say, "Baka," saying that, he's not going to beat Madara, they are, as Sasuke and Deku would both appear right beside Madara, right beside Naruto, and all of them would begin having smiles on their faces as they would begin to essentially start fighting against Madara, who at this point would begin to completely outclass them. They begin seeing the insane amount of power that Madara has, and he would be using his limbo abilities to catch them off guard on multiple occasions. This isn't something he does one time. It's something that he does over and over and over, and is ultimately able to catch Team 7 off guard so many times. However, they're able to barely bounce back, and due to Sasuke having the ability to actually sense them, he would dodge. Since Naruto and Deku both have Sage mode, they would both ultimately be able to dodge. And keep in mind, Naruto does still learn Sage mode for the week when he fought against Pain. So just in case you guys were wondering where that was at, it still is in the story, and I do deeply apologize for forgetting that segment of the story. However, it completely blew past me when I was writing the script to even include that segment, seeing as it was something that kind of just stays constant in the story, so I didn't figure I would need to mention it. That being said though, this is when Madara would have somebody sneak up on him, Black Zetsu. And as Black Zetsu would actually try to betray Madara by stabbing a hole through his chest, this time around, Madara, as he should have done in the original story, would dodge the attack before then saying, "You dare betray me? I made you who you are." Before Zetsu begins pretty much like trying to argue with Madara, saying that he didn't mean it, like he pretty much guided him to where he is now, like everything he's told him is a lie, but Madara would say that everything you've told me might have been a lie. However, my goals do not change, as he would obliterate Black Zetsu from existence, and Kaguya would not be brought into the story, because Kaguya was something that should have never happened, and Madara, realistically speaking, should have 1000% been able to dodge against Zetsu's attack. Come on now. There's no way Zetsu was able to do that, and the only reason Kishimoto even ended up doing that was because, quote, Madara is too strong to defeat. However, he didn't account for Deku being a part of the story, and Naruto and Sasuke being pretty OP as well. So, with that being said, they all get serious, as they all would begin looking at each other and preparing for the worst outcome. However, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to be seeing how the very final, the pinnacle to the action of this story unfolds, then you will be needing to wait for the full series version of the story to drop in movie format. At the very beginning of the video, I will be giving a timestamp to where I'm going to be leaving off the final battle, so you guys can click on it and actually give me that extra little view that your boy likes to see on his channel. So I'm so sorry I'm leaving you guys on a huge cliffhanger, but it had to be done. It had to be done. How else am I gonna get more viewers? Come on now. Anyways though, guys, if you guys did enjoy today's part, definitely make sure to go down below, smash that like button, and as always, it has been your boy Zether. I love each and every single one of you guys, but I am out. Peace.